All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the first edition of the Batter Up podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood of 2025. I'm Mike Rifkin, joined by the Dugout of Millwood, by the man who loves to do the Macarena. I got nothing else but the old ops guys back with
Good
them.
afternoon, all. Good to be back.
How you feeling, buddy?
Better, better. Just, long recovery, but at least good enough to be able to start doing this again.
All right. So as we mentioned, it is the first Batter Up 2025. We got a lot to go over. We get into a future Hall of Famer going to the West Coast. We're definitely going to talk some Mets baseball here because you got the two of us. But we're going to start with an update on Roki Sasaki, the Japanese phenom. And as per Jeff Passan of ESPN, we are down to the three finalists, two of which not really surprised by. The third one is the ultimate surprise. So the three finalists are the Los Angeles Dodgers, the San Diego Padres, who've always been the top two if you read all those reports. And the third team is the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, Mark, I don't know if it was the last episode I did or if it was a couple of episodes ago I did. If I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan today, knowing we are in the mix for this guy, I don't care that we're going up against the Dodgers and the Padres. I am tired of finishing in second place for marquee free agents, especially with the Vladimir Guerrero news of he's only got 1 year left, and they just settled his arbitration case at I think it was like 28 million bucks or something.
Correct.
So, get your thoughts here on Sasaki.
Well, obviously, when he posted, you had to think there were going to be some, at least, interest from a lot of East Coast teams. And
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning, he had posted to everybody, and he had said that everybody was in it. I am not surprised that the Yankees, Mets, Red Sox are all out. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from this young athlete. It just doesn't surprise me with all the other needs those teams have. When you look at the Dodgers, you know, he will fit right in with that rotation. With Yamamoto, you got Otani to ease and welcome him. But I understand what you're saying regarding Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's not going to go there because to me, Toronto is just a crumbling foundation that's just going to come under itself. I would watch them being huge trade deadline fallouts this season.
Especially if they don't land him, the season doesn't go the way they do want to go. And if Vlad doesn't have a contract, yeah, you're going to say goodbye to him at some point because
Right,
you can't lose him just for a draft pick.
right. So then you look at it being the Padres and the Dodgers are really the two teams that are going to battle it out. Um, both teams have heavy payrolls going into this season. So one more dollar to this team or that team, it really doesn't matter anymore. But I think the best fit for him is going, I hate to say it, is going to be LA because it makes the most sense. He's going to want to be a part of an organization that's committed to winning. The team is a prime example of how a team needs to be and to win a championship. So
listen, my heart wants him to go to Toronto just for the fact of Padres, Dodgers, both National League. Also, my thing is this, and there was a report before he got posted, or right after he got posted, like there was a handshake, wink, wink deal between him and the Dodgers. Now, whether that's true or false, we don't know. And we'll never know the truth, especially because Major League Baseball will never look into it because Rob Manfred doesn't have a set. But that's a whole nother conversation, i.e., the Otani investigation, guys. The fact that the Dodgers are going to be able to do this a year after landing Yamamoto, and the only reason they're able to do all of this is because Shohei Otani took all that deferred money.
Right.
This is where the loopholes are going to kick in. Now, Sasaki's not going to make big money because technically, I think he had to pitch one more year in Japan in order to make big money. So this is just international pool money. And then I guess everything else would have to be incentivized in the contract.
Right.
But the interesting thing is this: San Diego was rumored to be shopping Dylan Cease around too. So I wonder if they were to sign Sasaki, if they would still be listening on Dylan Cease, because that would be a massive target for certain teams, not just come trade deadline, come right now.
Oh, with 2 months left to go until the season begins, teams have to start coming into the finalization of their roster. And, as we always see with almost every ball club, players are already at spring training complexes, already starting to loosen up and get ready for next season. So most teams want to be done with all their acquisitions by the end of February. So if we're going to see a big signing period, it's going to be between now and over the next 6 weeks.
And there are still a lot of names on the market. The two big ones, at least offensively, being Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso. We'll get into Pete in a minute. But, there's still Anthony Santander, who hit 40 homers for Baltimore last year. There's still Jack Flaherty. Both those guys apparently are now willing to take lesser deals than we thought before. See what happens there with both of them. And I don't know if Flaherty's waiting on Sasaki or vice versa. It's going to be really interesting to see how that unfolds. Um, but let's get into this from the Met perspective because, like I mentioned, we're both Met fans, so we'll get into that. The Mets were in, and up until yesterday, John Heyman and Andy Martino both said, I think it was by evening. I won't time it per se, but by the evening, the Mets were told they were out, they were done on Sasaki. Which, listen, I'm not going to sit here and yell at the Mets for not getting him when I don't think they had a real chance. But that begs the question mark. With the rotation looking as it is, the return of Shamanaya, the true tribal chief, Kodai Senga, David Peterson, Clay Holmes, and however else you want to fill out this rotation, are they done in the rotation, at least for now? And maybe they don't address it until potentially the trade deadline.
No, the Mets need another starter. And this isn't taking a knock at what's there. Okay. Because we saw what that rotation, mind you, did last season minus Kodai Senga. So I think that you need one more. Shamanaya impressed like we thought he would. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
he did very well in New York, being that it's a deep park, and he's liked by all the players. That's always a big key. I do not believe he is your number one in any sense of the means, and that's the problem. Kodai Senga is going to be featured as probably the starting pitcher. Manaya right now would be at the two. It's not right. You need another name. And there's plenty out there that they can choose from, but the Mets have so much to do.
So if you're the Mets, and I agree with you, I still think the Mets need a guy. I still think they need a guy. Jack Flaherty doesn't excite me. There's
He's not bad. He's just not someone I would go all in on, so to speak.
right. So that means you have to make a trade because Lord knows you're not bringing back Max Scherzer.
No.
So that means you got to make a trade. Luckily, there's people on this show who love to fantasize about trades and trade ideas, and and that would be me. And there are a couple of names that we could talk about. We could talk about Luis Castillo in Seattle.
Yeah.
That's been discussed. We could talk about Dylan Cease. We brought him up before.
San Diego.
The name the Mets missed out on, though, to me, and it hurts because he only signed, I think it's basically 1 year with an option. The guy they missed out on was Walker Bueller.
I think they were a little too nervous to take a chance. Now, mind you, Walker Bueller is one of the better names out there for free agency, but he did just come off his second Tommy John surgery. And even his this season, he wasn't that even after the Tommy John surgery, you could see he has a ways to go.
But I would say this: Bueller would have been for this year what Luis Severino was last year.
Fair enough.
Like I'm not asking him to go win 20 games.
Right.
If he could win me 12 ball games next year out of the 3 spot in the rotation, that would have been epic. But he goes to Boston, fine and dandy. So now where are the Mets? Where are the Mets loophole, basically? Well, the Mets have a really big conglomerate of middle infielders in the minor leagues. Middle infield to third base, because they have Vientos there at third. No one's going to be able to play shortstop because Francisco Lindor is still locked up.
Right.
And then let's go to second base, where Jeff McNeil is still around. Luis Angel Acuna is still around. Eventually, Jet Williams is coming up. And then there's Ronnie Mauricio, who's right. The wild card in all of this.
Yep. For the first time in a long time, the Mets have a problem that we've wanted them to have, is an abundance of fun.
And then there's Brett Beatty as well. I didn't want to forget Brett Beatty.
Poor Brett.
It really is poor Brett.
Poor Brett. I mean, nothing against Beatty. I happen to like him as a ball player, but when you have Vientos playing better than he was, we know Vientos might be designated hitter this year, but I'm not comfortable in giving Brett Beatty third base until I see his gloves a little bit more. His hitting is proven he can hit, but it's his fielding that cost a lot last year.
And listen, he went through funks offensively too. And sometimes, listen, for young players, they're going to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, listen, there's a log jam at these positions. We're in agreement that the Mets still need a starting pitcher. Maybe Beatty's the piece. I know Bleach.
Well, I don't know if it would be Beatty. I think your trade piece is Jeff McNeil. Unfortunately, I love the squirrel. Don't get me wrong. I love Jeff McNeil. I think he's a hell of a ball player.
McNeil would have to be your money offset piece.
Probably.
You're probably the one. And listen, I would be the guy to drive Jeff McNeil to the airport. Not because I dislike Jeff McNeil, but the last couple of years, his offense has dipped a little bit. And
ever since he won that Silver Slugger Award, it has not been the same.
Well, and realistically, let's blame the other thing. They got rid of the shift, and Jeff McNeil was so good at hitting against the shift.
Right.
The other thing is this: Jeff McNeil is really versatile. So are you okay then if Starling Marte needs a day, because Starling Marte's going to need a day here and there?
Yeah.
Jeff McNeil would have been the guy to play right field. Now they do have Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri as well,
Right.
unless they're going to add a real center fielder, and those are just your two backup outfielders, which is again begs the question: who is it?
Right.
Hello, Luis Robert. What's up?
Well, I was trying to work that out for a while. How could Luis Robert be a part in? But when you see them go make the move like they did for Jose Siri, you have to think they're going to be concentrating on another area. Now, the combination they have playing center field, not bad. It is not bad at all. It's a good combo. I think we we're darting around, and because both of us know what the next piece that has to be signed is.
Yeah. So
It has,
let's get into that.
yeah. As speaking as as for probably many a Mets fan, loyalty means a lot in baseball. Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's you're the
In
player or you're the
sports.
fan, yeah. Whether you're the player or the fan, loyalty means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete Alonso is doing everything he can to stay in New York. We don't know all the terms and conditions that Pete's club, meaning Scott Boras, has given the Mets, but the last we did hear was it was a 3-year deal with opt outs.
After every year.
Right,
That was from Jim Duquette.
right. For Alonso, that makes no sense. And for the Mets, that makes no sense. You're going to want to invest on him. My answer is 3 years is fine. Opt out after two, but not a player. It's a team option. That's what it has to be. Make it a team option and put incentives in it for him to earn a little bit here and there. I'm sure it can be worked out, but 3 years, 90 million with opt outs after two.
So I'm willing to give a little bit more than you are. Now there are a couple of things I want to say though. Scott Boras, with all due respect, I've never met the man.
Nah, neither of us.
To comp this to the Prince Fielder contract that he signed in Detroit, come on, dude.
That was the biggest faux pas I've ever listened to.
And
Oh
that
my
was
God.
9 for 214, I believe.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, that's not going down. Look, I think three things can be true. What you said is true. Loyalty matters. Fans, athletes, it matters. Two, the Mets need Pete Alonso. They need him because at the moment, who's protecting the guy you just signed to almost 800 million bucks, Juan Soto? You don't have that guy at the moment.
Right.
And three, Pete needs the Mets because Pete's market doesn't exist. Now, if Scott Boras offered this to other teams, Pete might have a market.
Right. But
But
this is sorry, go ahead, Mike.
but does Pete want to go play for 3 years with the San Francisco Giants?
See, I don't think Pete is about the money. That's the
I
whole
don't
thing.
think so either. So that's why I don't think this is a money play. Now, did he make a mistake when he turned down the 7 for 148 that Joel Sherman reported? Yeah, he made a mistake. He miscalculated, which, by the way, that's going to happen. Now, the other thing is this. I think we can agree on this. Pete was going to be a former Met had he not had the playoffs he had.
Up until that hit in Milwaukee, that home run in
He was
Milwaukee,
gone.
I I'm in my stomach, I knew it. And as I said, I'm a very big Pete Alonso fan. In my stomach, though, I was like watching him come up to his last at bat. I'm like, unfortunately, this is going to be the last time he's going to be. Oh my God, go!
Uh,
And
right, like in that moment, you're like, oh man, this is gonna be his last at bat as a Met. He's gonna hit and do a double play, and that's gonna be it. And then, oh my God, he did what we all probably didn't expect him to do, which was go yard. That being said, is this David Stearns comes in. David Stearns has no loyalty to Pete Alonso because he didn't draft him, didn't
correct.
develop him. Steve Cohen has no loyalty to Pete because Steve Cohen did not draft Pete Alonso. He wasn't the owner then. But Steve Cohen said something interesting during spring training last year that I hope Pete hits 55 homers. That means we won a lot of games. I'm going to have to pay him. Well, Pete hit 34, but Pete hit the most important home runs when they mattered,
When it was needed,
which
yes.
means for Steve Cohen, the checkbook's got to be open a little bit more. Now, I'm not looking at the 3 and the 90 with the opt outs because I think the opt outs are stupid. I don't want to have to play this game
I
every year.
I hate opt outs, but you have to, as an analyst, you have to figure them in at some point. Not saying that Mike has to figure it in what he's saying. I'm just saying I'm putting
But
it in there because that's how it's played out. That's all.
right. But for David Stearns, I don't want to have to play this out every year. So you said 390 with the opt outs. You're cool with that. What I'm cool with 5 years. I'm actually cool with 5 years, and I'm willing to go up to 120 to 125.
Okay.
I will go that far. Now, if Pete says no to that, then we're just.
Then it's
But listen, I was for a long time 4 and 100 or 4 for 110. If the 5th year matters that much to the guy,
give it to
because
him.
because he's homegrown, I will give it to him. And because of this, think of the announcement the Mets made a couple of weeks ago. There's another number going up. The captain's going up. David Wright. And what do we say about David Wright? Well, one, if not for the injuries, he was on a Hall of Fame pace. Well, but two, David Wright, I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me. David Wright's the greatest homegrown Met of all time. You want to argue
That,
Tom Seaver? I didn't get
that I
to,
was about to say. Look, I love David.
but
That's a hard statement for me to answer at this moment.
the difference for me would be Seaver eventually got moved.
Yes.
So David's the only guy who spent his entire career as a New York Met. But like we all thought the other guy would have been Jacob deGrom. That didn't happen. Pete Alonso's got a chance. I don't even want to say has a chance. Pete Alonso should hold every offensive record in New York Met history.
He has the opportunity to.
Right. That should be on the table as well. Hey, have you seen what you've done? You could be David Wright. You could be up there. Number 20 could be up there next to 5 as one of the greatest homegrown talents in this franchise's history.
Right.
And if Pete does go and we find out the Mets made him this offer, 5 for 120 or whatever, and he turned it down, well, then that's on Pete. But there was a video that was shown yesterday of Sean Manaea, our real tribal chief, working out with Pete Alonso.
So they've been working out since December, according to
Right.
me.
So hey, Stearns, David Stern, Steve Cohen. Like, hey, let's get it done.
I can't sit down and look at the screen and say I know what it's like to write a check for $780 million. I can't say that. I can't then say with all the money that I've spent, this here, that there, Lindor, all this is mounted close to $2 billion. Now you're Steve Cohen, who's worth 20 billion. I don't care anything. You spend 1/10 of your wealth, you gotta stop and be like, whoa, 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 wait, what's going on here? Because you got to look at other teams in the market. There is nobody who can compete with Steve Cohen if Steve Cohen wants to get aggressive. Nobody has the firing power. Nobody has the money to combat Steve Cohen. Steve Cohen just knows what he wants. I think he wants more than anything to bring back Alonso, but it has to make sense. He just spent 800 million. Now, personally, like Mike said, and I said, loyalty is key. This should have been done and done already. And I think Alonso was not getting anywhere with any other teams, no offers. So he
Mm-hmm.
makes this direct offer to the Mets, offering them, as they like to call it, an olive branch. More or less, it's just an offer. It's not saying peace, hey, here what? No, it's an offer. I'm making it to you. I want to stay as a Met. Here's how I want to work with you. I think the problem more or less is it's Scott Boras.
And here's the other thing for Boras. Boras has a couple of clients who are on the Mets. Brandon Nimmo's a Met.
Yep.
I don't remember if he represents Edwin Diaz or not.
I don't know.
And he may represent Manaea.
That I think you're right on.
And then there's Pete. Oh, and then there's the guy who you just said just signed for 750. So what really should have happened is Steve Cohen should have just said, "Hey, here's $1 billion. Split it between Soto and Pete." But in reality, look, no one can compete with Steve Cohen in terms of the cash. You're right. But I think this is a deal. Soto was the great grab. Pete's the grab for the fans. Soto was the grab for Cohen himself to prove that he could land the big fish. Pete's for the fans. And so we'll see what happens. But look, I got to tell you, I think my gut is this still gets done. Hopefully sooner rather than later. That way I don't have to sweat this out.
Hmm.
I got to be honest with you, like sweating out the Soto stuff with Dan, because Dan and I were live for the Soto stuff. And to be fair, I wasn't expecting the Mets to land Soto. I was expecting him to go back to the Yankees.
I got a phone call from a friend of mine and said, you got to go turn on the TV. I said, okay. I said, where am I going? He said, you got to go to ESPN. Yeah, I didn't talk for like the next 3 minutes. I just stared at the screen. So then I'm trying to search and find. And the reasoning is Steve Cohen's a generous guy. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah. So we're gonna wait on Alonso and starting pitching for the Mets. We'll keep the show moving though, because we brought up Max Scherzer before. Max Scherzer's a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
There's another future Hall of Famer that's still going. Justin Verlander signed a 1-year contract with the San Francisco Giants. I think
The
it's
most
worth up to about
pointless,
15 million.
yeah, the most
But
pointless signing.
listen,
All right.
no, go ahead.
Look, I will not take away from what Justin Verlander has accomplished in his career and in his pitching career in the major leagues. Okay, he's a definite Hall of Famer. My problem is it's the Tom Brady effect, and I hate calling it that. Is that players are trying 1 year deal, I get another ring. 1 year deal, I get another ring. I can still do this, I get another ring. It has to come down to the point where we say it's enough. When is enough enough? When is this shoulder injury enough? When is that scapular injury going to be enough? Oh, he pulled his hamstring again, missing 8 starts. That's okay. We're still giving him 15 minutes. There has to be that Mickey from Rocky in your head saying, "You're done." You know, you're a bum. There's a time when we're told we can no longer play the game, and it's time for Justin to go out on top.
Yeah, I wish he would have retired after the Astros won the World Series in 2022.
Yeah,
Like that would have been a good play for him. Look, Justin Verlander is one of the three or four best pitchers of his era. Give or take, whatever you think of Scherzer and some of these other guys. But Justin Verlander, over the last couple of years, has dealt with a lot of injuries, arm related injuries, which means there's a lot of innings on that right arm.
right.
And if I'm San Francisco, look, as much as I love Justin Verlander, and I think it's actually a really good signing, especially if you could plug him in as your number 3 or 4 starter. But I don't think like that. I think if you're signing him, he has to be number 2 behind Logan Webb. And let's just match that up within the division of the National League West. The Dodgers are going to throw out Yamamoto. They're going to throw out Ohtani. Kershaw's coming back. So the Dodger rotation's better. San Diego, Dylan Cease, Yu Darvish. That's already better than what you got. Oh, by the way, you're in a division with the Arizona Diamondbacks, which, by the way, the top 3 of that rotation looks like this: Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. Oh, by the way, they signed Corbin Burns for $210 million. Oh, and then there's the Rockies, who really don't count as a Major League Baseball team at the moment. I don't know what direction. To me, I don't know what the Giants are. Like they spent a ton of money on Willie Adames, not a whole lot else, and then they make this signing. And it's kind of like, well, you want to compete with Buster Posey now as the GM, but on the other side of the ball, the 3 teams I just told you about are still better than you. You got 2 teams in the National League East, probably 3 that are better than you. But yeah, I got to see Washington do before I say that. And then, I don't know what the NL Central is going to look like because that's a coin flip right now. And as much as I love Justin Verlander, he doesn't put them over the top for me, which is why I don't understand A, why you signed there, but B, and more importantly, why you even make that move.
It doesn't make sense to me, to go to the Giants. If he were, let's say, sign a 1 year with the Dodgers, maybe I would say, all right, he wants to get that ring and go home. Fine, there's his best shot to do it. Are there other teams that could get him the ring? Yeah. So, but going to the Giants, who are gonna have a tough uphill climb against the Padres and the Dodgers. And then, as Mike said, you have to look at the NL East of all of them. You got the Mets, you got the Braves, you got the Phillies, and you got the Nationals. And then you got the Marlins. You know, you got
By the way,
four.
the Braves could use a starting pitcher.
I'm just saying, you got 4 teams in the NL East who I would say are good enough contenders. One obviously will win the division, and then it's gonna be an interesting wild card. I would guarantee you're getting at least one, if not 2, from the NL East, and then the other one from NL West. Stop and think.
Yeah, look, I just think they were unless he's from the area, which I don't know. I don't know if he's from Northern California, and if he is, that's like a going home move for him. That's fine. I'll never fault the player for that. But look, Justin Verlander's got nothing to prove to me. The other move I would have liked to see him do was 1 year in Detroit and then just call it a career with the Tigers.
And I would have been fine with that as well.
Put him behind Tarek Skubal. Ooh. By the way, Skubal just got 10 and a half in arbitration.
He should have gotten more.
So, all right. So there's Verlander. Scherzer still on the market, so maybe Scherzer winds up in Atlanta.
He'll end up somewhere. He wants to pitch.
Which, by the way, credit to these guys for continuing to wanting to continue their careers. It's just, I want to remember you for your prime and how great you are.
Right. And, you know, when one of my legends, Mike Piazza, was, you know, finally became a Met. And then when he was, you knew with his back and everything he was going to be done, to see him go and sign with the Padres 1 year was just horrible.
Well,
But at least he went, at least he retired and went into the Hall as a Met.
it's like when Pedro signed with the Phillies. It was like, what? Why?
Right.
Why, Pedro? But again, he'll always be a Boston Red Sox.
Correct. You know, as we've talked about, you know, the Mets are in an interesting position this year. They are definitely going to be one of the youngest teams on the field within the next 2 years. They're going to have a lot of youth on this team, and that's going to go a long way.
And who could they thank for that? Justin Verlander and Max
Max Scherzer.
Scherzer.
I mean,
By the way, you can
but if
thank them
you,
also for their money coming off the books.
the only name right now, if a ball was to be hit down to first, who would be fielding it is Ryan Clifford, and he's not even ready yet. So right now, if the ball was to go there, there's nobody fielding the ball except Mark Vientos, and he has already expressed he does not want to play first base.
Well, again, dive into that. We dove into Pete a little bit. Let's dive into the bullpen. Because there were reports, I think it came out last week, the Mets met with Tanner Scott. He's still out there, as are a lot of other bullpen arms. We good? Okay. Other bullpen arms as well. Jeff Hoffman just signed a 3-year deal with the Toronto Blue Jays. Apparently, he had signed with Baltimore first, but Baltimore had issues with his physical. We okay, or? Sorry, we have some technical difficulties, but I'm going to keep going. So the Mets met with Tanner Scott. So uh, Tanner Scott, who was the closer of the Marlins, was the big time get at the trade deadline for the San Diego Padres. They gave up a lot for him. You know what? I'm going to wait on the bullpen till the old ops guy gets back. I want to talk about another team then. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Baltimore Orioles. When Mark comes back, we'll get back into the bullpen. But I want to talk a little bit about the Orioles because this is one that I don't even want to say it intrigues me. I don't think there's I think the two biggest disappointments so far this offseason both actually come from the American League East. One of them is the Toronto Blue Jays. Now that changes if they land Sasaki. And the other one's the Baltimore Orioles. Now the reason why you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. My
No,
computer shut down on
no, it's all good. I'm getting into the Orioles, then we'll go back into the bullpen.
me. Okay.
So the Orioles a couple of weeks ago signed Charlie Morton to a 1-year, $15 million contract. They also added some Japanese pitcher whose name just escapes me. I have a massive problem with you, Baltimore. And yeah, I'm rooting for your football team this weekend. Go Birds. You have this top of the line prospect system. You have new ownership, which should mean you're going to spend some money. But I go back to last year at the trade deadline, where you traded for Trevor Rogers, thinking that's the move that's going to set everyone up and be all excited. No. And then you took a dump on the trade deadline. You're taking an even bigger dump now by not adding anything to this rotation outside of Charlie Morton, who's 56 years old. I'm not knocking Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton's a good pitcher, but it's not what the Orioles need. The Orioles need a guy who at the top of the rotation gives you a scare. Because now is the time. While I got Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, you name it. I have that great young freaking nucleus, and I ain't adding to it. Because I am prospect hugging. For shame on you, Baltimore Orioles ownership. For shame on you, Mike Elias. Because you are wasting everybody's time not adding to a team that could go out there and win a damn World Series.
I was kind of surprised to see Corbin Burns go where he did. I mean, you're on a prime team in Baltimore. If this is about money, then again, it goes back to my speech on loyalty. Now, not to say Corbin Burns did go from Milwaukee to Baltimore and now had probably the best year in his career and is being offered a lot to why I hate to say it, like it's like taking a step down. Why? It doesn't make sense to me. Why not go to a team like the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Mets or the Dodgers, whatever. Any one of those teams would throw money. Probably not as many years or as much as he wanted, but rings speak more than contract length, in my opinion. Sometimes
Look, here's the Burns apparently lives in Arizona. His wife and kids are there, which makes all the sense in the world. You had that guy, you couldn't lock him down. That's fine with me. You couldn't lock it down. Then you know what? Pull the trigger on a Garrett Crochet deal. Pull the trigger on bringing somebody in that can line up the top of the rotation that matches up with Garrett Cole, that can match up with Shane Bieber. You don't have that. Now, if you're going to bank on Grayson Rodriguez being that guy, okay, that's fine. I'd still like veteran presence. There's too many teams in this league that want to hug these prospects, and I'm not knocking the prospects, but you don't know what the hell a prospect's going to be. You need a sure thing. The Baltimore Orioles were in the island of irrelevancy for so freaking long. Now you're relevant and you're one of the premier teams in not just the American League, but in all Major League Baseball. Hell, you had a Sunday night game in Camden Yards for the first time in feels like forever last year. And this is what you're going to do? You're going to do this is what the offseason looks like? I'm going to just take a giant dump and not do a damn thing? I'm sorry. I can't buy that. You have a chance to be a World Series team. Trade a prospect or two and go get a guy at the top of the rotation who could be a horse. Instead, you're being a horse's ass. And I'm not even an Orioles fan, and I'm saying this.
What I saw as an incline in Baltimore, I'm going to start seeing as a decline. And that to me, that would worry me a little bit.
Now, the break for them is this. Here's the break they have. Outside of the Yankees, every other team in that division is a freaking wild card. I don't know what the Red Sox are. I don't know what the Blue Jays are. And the Rays don't even have a stadium to play in next year.
Yeah, the AL East will, is not going to be as represented as good as it has over the last few years. Obviously, the Yankees will be in a prime position to repeat as the AL East champions. Um, they did well in signing. I'm not going to take that away from them, especially with Max Fried, which I think is going to be a great compliment.
I just
So,
don't love the 8 years.
years, yeah, might be much, but I'm just talking about the player himself. I
Yeah,
like
no, no,
watching him
that's fair.
pitch.
I
Yeah.
I actually think Brian Cashman's done a really nice job rebounding
For
off of Soto.
the, let me tell you, I'm sure his gut emptied out the moment the announcement was made. However, Mike just made it very clear. If we didn't hear or know about it. He just went on with business and he just moved on. And that's something that a lot of people can't do in this business. People hold too many grudges. Cashman said, all right, fine. Now we got to go get this and that. So he did. He did a good job this year for the first time in a long time.
Oh, he knew his rear end was on the line. Michael Ice, your rear end should be on the line, but hey, who knows? All right, let's get back into the bullpen talk because we were there before you sputtered out of control.
Yeah.
The Mets had met with Tanner Scott, who was the prize pupil of the trade deadline when he went to San Diego from the Marlins. A lot of these good bullpen arms are still out there. Jeff Hoffman just signed in Toronto the other
Right.
day after agreeing to a deal with Baltimore, but Baltimore didn't like his physical, so they said thanks, but no thanks. Um, Listen, I'll say this on Tanner Scott. I'd be in. The one thing that worries me is the walks, but you know what? I have that same issue with Edwin Diaz at times.
I, I noticing this morning. I was reading into it a lot. Tanner Scott is a perfect fit for this bullpen right now. Obviously, Edwin Diaz is slated to be the closer, and it would be probably more or less Tanner Scott would be the setup man. However, in push comes to shove, if Diaz needs a day off, Tanner Scott could close. I think this would make this bullpen one of the more elite bullpens in baseball. And then Mike had also made the plea earlier for Ryan Stanek to come back, and I think that would be so advantageous for this team. He's such an accomplished bullpen pitcher.
If the Mets could bring in Scott, bring back Stanek, and then maybe bring back Brooks Raley, I
You're looking at a bullpen that's very secure, but anything can happen.
right. And then on top of that, we talked about the rotation before. You're probably going to throw an arm or two from said rotation into the pen, whether that's Jose Budo, Tyler McGill. You
Right.
know, you know.
Uh,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, McGill is the biggest wild card right now on what they're going to do with him. He could either be long reliever out of the bullpen, he become a specialist, or he could actually make the starting rotation as the fifth starter. I think there are a lot of sides to McGill. They just have to use it right.
Yeah, look. I think to have a successful bullpen, you need minimum two lefties. So whoever you are, whether you're the Mets or whoever, you need two lefties minimum, and then you come in with guys who throw just gas. But I look at what Arizona did a couple of years ago, and the thing you notice is everyone throws from a different arm angle. So maybe now it's not the velocity that just plays, it's the arm angles and the three quarters or the over the top or the sidearm guys. I think it's really interesting. I'm actually really surprised Scott's still on the market because I thought he would have been gobbled up the first couple of days.
Right. I mean, there could be something in his physical that we do not know about. Um, or he's could be just holding out for the money he wants or the team he thinks he's best fit for. That's all.
And look, listen, well, take him to set up Edwin Diaz. That'd be fantastic. Um, I know the Yankees had interest, and then they trade for Devin Williams, so I think that takes them out.
Yes. Right.
I saw Bleacher Report put out a predicted contract for the rest of the remaining big free agents, and I think they had Tanner Scott at 4 for 66 from the Angels. And I was like, all
That's
right,
not a bad deal for him either.
it's
That's
not a
actually
bad
pretty
deal, but do you
fair.
want to go pitch for the Angels at the moment?
They are an internal fire right now on what they're going to do for their future.
Speaking of fires in California, just best wishes to everyone out there, and thank you to the first responders
For all that
for
you
all
have been
their work.
doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many other teams like the guy the Phillies got, Estevez. He's still
Yeah.
out there too. He'd be another name I would have no problem bringing in.
Yep.
I think it's really weird how bullpen arms just you always need them, and then they're just the last ones out there. Um, yeah, so there's that. I had the mini Orioles rant, I guess you could call it. Next week we're gonna have the Hall of Fame announcement. We don't know what day we're gonna do the podcast, if we're gonna do it right after that or day after, but we'll let y'all know. Um, anything else you wanted to hit on?
No, not really. Just I appreciate all the emails and stuff from people here at the network and people who will watch us for getting well soon and all that. Things are slowly coming around. I am getting better, and I will be returning to these guys slowly but surely.
You want to promote anything from the dugout?
The dugout's been a little bit quiet since I've been recovering from surgery. I've been doing some internal trades, and the dugout made some nice trades. We have a nice Mike Trout rookie up for sale.
Ooh,
So, yeah, I think it's now time to cash in on the Trout. So,
you got to
been
reel
doing
in
that
something nice on the Trout.
hopefully, and then Char will be back with more fun news. She'll make her return with Troy for the Puppy Bowl this year. Yeah, they want to do the Puppy Bowl, so I'm like, okay, you can do the Puppy Bowl.
All right. Can't wait for that. All right. So here's what's going down, folks. Too, you can watch us the YouTube channel. We're also going to release the audio version of this if you don't want to just look at these beautiful mugs anymore and just want to listen. You can get the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com. It blogs, vlogs, planes, trades, and automobiles. Socials, Facebook, Sports Insanity Network, Twitter, S Insanity Real. Suck it, Lonnie. Pitchers and catchers are a month away.
Comes so quickly.
It really does. It seems like just yesterday, Francisco Lindor hit the grand slam to put the Mets into the National League Championship Series. All right. Until next week, he's the old ops guy. I'm the pun master. Thank you for tuning into this edition of the Batter Up Podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood here on the Sports Insanity Network. Have a good week, everybody.